jump right into that, to me is a major con. I tend to shop my travel pretty hard,
Right.
looking for the right airline, the comfort that I want, the prices that I want. And so you can definitely limit your options when you're booking
Yeah.
through Capital One's portal. And if you're doing that too often, depending on just how much you travel, then you're going to lose all the value. You may even cost yourself money if you force yourself to use their portal because of higher prices or
Right.
because they have fewer options, and the options available are not the ones that are most cost affordable. Or like you said, because you could have used your miles through another service or gained through another service at a better bang for the buck.
Welcome back to Generational Sense. My name is Nate Bellamy, and I'm here with my dad, Brian Bellamy.
Hey, Brian.
Each week we're going through different generational wealth topics, such as investing and just kind of how to be smarter with your money and your money management. So this week it's going to be more of a personal story about a decision that I just made. We're going to kind of talk through it and talk through a little bit more of the generalities when it comes to my decision and things to really kind of be looking forward to. So recently, Dad, I made the decision to go ahead and sign up for the VentureX credit card. So pros and cons to this card. It's got really good benefits. However, as many would know if you're looking it up, it's a pretty high annual fee. So our reasoning for going ahead and going with this decision was, one, I'm decent with credit cards. I haven't had any statement balances that I haven't paid off on time and that sort of thing. So I was confident enough, one, to start out that I'm a decent credit card person as of now. Secondly, we would like to be making or like to be going on at least one kind of hopefully international trip a year, if not one sort of bigger trip a year. So having a pretty good travel card that easily pays for itself was part of the decision making. And so just kind of those few aspects of it, I've enjoyed it so far, other than the fact it does have that high annual fee. And the main kind of reason I pulled the trigger, of course, to start out was we do have our honeymoon coming up. And so it'd be nice to go ahead and be able to leverage that starting bonus that it gives us starting out for that. So that kind of went in the decision making. I would love to kind of hear your side of it from your perspective, and maybe you thought that why that may have been a good or bad idea, and we can talk through it.
Okay. You've described a lot of the reasons why it might be a good idea with respect to your intended use of it. You
Right.
mentioned the VentureX card has that $395 annual fee,
Yeah.
which is a lot considering you can go grab a typical credit card. They'll pay you up to 2% back cash
Right.
for free, right?
Right.
And so, if you spend 20 grand a year on a credit card and you're getting 2% back, that's what we do with our Fidelity account, for instance. Fidelity offers a nice cash card that gives you 2% back. The trick with theirs is you have to have a Fidelity cash management account linked to
Right.
that. So they get you into the Fidelity world with their card in order for you to get it. There are some pretty good cards out there that approach that same level of reward. And so if you again, just running some rough math here, if you spend 20 grand on that, then you're looking at a nice, cool, $400 a year that you're going to get back. And so
Right.
that's not a bad deal. Instead of paying $400 a year, you're getting $400 a year, which you could
Right.
put towards some travel or something if you wanted to. So that gives you a lot more
Right.
flexibility. So what you've chosen to do here is say, well, I think I can get more than $400 of value from my $20,000 of spending every year and pay the credit card company $400 to do it. So what total value do you need to get out of this card in order to make it worthwhile? If you could use a cash back card like that, you need to get just roughly, about double your fee in
Right.
order to make it worthwhile. And so you're looking at here about $800 value, because just breaking even is not necessarily good enough,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Because if you only break even, then you're also giving up your healthy credit card habits where you
Right.
pay off your balance every month and you are giving up the rewards of that in terms of other ways that you could get points or cash.
Well, I
So,
mean, even then, what's the point in getting a card too if you're just kind of, you have the same balance you did before you got the card, you know?
mhm,
So,
yeah.
yep.
And I do think, that's the trap that a lot of folks fall into with the Capital One Venture X card, and that's why they love you, not necessarily you, but they love many of their customers, and then folks like you that maybe travel enough get to benefit from that in that
Right.
they don't mind giving a $300 annual travel credit especially when you have to book your travel through them because they get that nice
Yep.
handsome 2.4% back for their terminal fees and everything. And so, they're making money there and then, they haven't given up much. They've still got a $95 cost on top of that you're paying. And so now you've
Hmm.
got to get some other benefits from that card, such as using their lounge access, using their luggage add-ons, using their rental insurance. And frankly, if you're only doing one trip a year, then you're probably just kind of breaking even with them.
Right.
You're getting your $395 worth, in other words. But, again, don't forget, you're giving up that other future benefit that you could have had through cashback and things like that. Uh,
Right.
so, so you really need to travel. I guess what I'm getting at is, this is a card for people who travel a fair amount,
Yep.
more
That's a
than,
great
I've
point.
looked at this card for my wife and I, and we tend to only book travel where we fly and rent a car and things like that about once a year. And
Hmm.
given those numbers, this type of card just hasn't quite made sense for us. Even though I
Yeah.
love the idea of some of the perks, the rental car coverage and the lounges.
Right. And that was a big point of it that I kind of fought with because I debated on this card for a while, especially on my income. I need to make sure that I'm actually getting more than what I'm paying for with it. And one of the biggest things that I was kind of battling with was if I'm going to get this card, how can I make sure I'm getting the usage out of it that would make it worthwhile? And I think when it came down to those conversations I had with Ruby about whether this may have been a good decision for the both of us to be able to utilize, it really came down to the fact that we both want to travel a lot more internationally because she's got family from Japan and there's just several places on our bucket list that we go. So these are going to be a lot more pricier trips. And so when it came to the travel point side of things, as well as, of course, the perks with lounges and things like that, we're much more likely to be using those if they're longer and more, extensive trips. And so that came into a lot of the decision process of, we need to make sure we're actually planning out these trips and that they're going to be doable. So that came into a lot of the decision making there. Whether it was right or wrong necessarily, that might just be something I see over the years. Hopefully it'll be the right decision. Right now it excites me because I know I will get, the next couple of years use out of it with the trips we're already planning out. But still, it was a difficult decision to make for those kind of reasons exactly.
Well, Nate, you've mentioned several of the reasons why it's good to have this rewards card. Number one, you use the $300 annual travel credit. Sounds like
Right.
you're planning to do that. That effectively reduces your net cost to $95. So if you're already going to spend that money, then that's a feather in the hat for using this particular card. Secondly, you take advantage of the 10,000 mile anniversary bonus that Capital
Yeah.
One gives you. That's worth at least $100 towards travel. You can combine that with other credits that you have, and that helps to offset the entire annual fee. So there's a 1-2 punch where you've offset your $395. So now are you going to get that additional $300 or $400 of value? You could do that through
Right.
traveling more, or you could
Mhm.
do that through using their lounge access, which still would mean you travel more. You wouldn't want to
Right.
only have that one access to it. But if you're using that frequently enough and you're accessing the Capital One lounges and the Plaza Premium lounges, and if you use other airport lounges that you get access to a few times a year, then this can more than save the money to make it worthwhile on food, drinks, and your
Right.
comfort, of course, and what it's worth. Next, you book your travel through Capital One's portal. If that's something you're planning to do or you enjoy doing, then that might be something you like. And you earn 10 times your miles on hotels and rentals, 5 times on flights. So there's a fourth reason. I'm going to give you 3 more
Right.
real quick here. Next, you value the 2 times miles on everything else. So by paying for this premium card, you get more miles faster. So if you
Mhm.
enjoy earning those miles, you're using this card on all sorts of expenses, and you're going to use it, roll those miles into future travel and things, and that might also be something that you prefer. So that's
Right.
something that's useful if you like the flat rate earning structure instead of juggling the different categories and things like some cards have in order to get double. Next,
Right.
you use the other perks. So we mentioned a lounge access, but other cards may charge you for these things and all. So if you use
Mhm.
the perks such as the uh, rental car, the lounge access, and all, then that can make it worthwhile. And lastly, you redeem these miles for high value travel transfers and things where you get more bang for your buck. So if you're able to do some management there, then you can make this more worthwhile. I'm going to
Right.
give you a chance here to kind of give me your thoughts on that, and then I'll give you some of the reasons why it may be a bad card for some folks.
Yeah, absolutely. And when it comes down to it, and I'll say this with a lot of those perks, they're great on the standpoint of you're going to be able to make your trips in a sense, I would say, more enjoyable. You'll get more of that luxury style feel, but at the same time, you got to take into account the types of trips you're going on. And I think that's really, once again, where our decision came is because we knew we would be going more international. So there's going to be, if we're flying to Japan, it's at least one, most likely 2 stops at least. That's more chances for us to use this lounge access, as well as, if we're renting cars, the places we're going, you've got the perks there and whatnot, not even including just the basic give back with the 300 travel credit and bonus points. I will add though, the one thing also that was turning me away, and we might get into this in a second, is the fact that these points, although you can transfer them to their travel partners, their primary goal is for you to use their travel portal.
I am going to get into that in a
Okay, and
moment.
the downside there is you can get great deals. Majority of the time, though, you're going to be paying more in a sense. Regarding, you may be using points, great, but you're going to be using more points per dollar than you may be using, say I'm using my Delta card where I'm getting points for specifically Delta Sky Miles where I can use on Delta flights, or a more general card that only really use their main purpose is for transferring to travel partners. Like I've got my Bilt card. My Bilt card's great because I only really use it to pay rent because it's one of those travel cards that is a travel card and one of the only ones that you can use to pay rent with and get points on that. So that's what I mainly use it for. 0 annual fee. It's great. The main thing there is they do have a travel portal, which actually has really good deals, but they're pushing even more for you to actually transfer to different people versus the Capital One travel portal. You could be paying more. And so that was a downside and a kind of a decision thing. So I'll let you kind of add to that since I know you were about to mention that.
Yeah, I'll just jump right into that. To me, is a major con. I tend to shop my travel pretty hard,
Right.
looking for the right airline, the comfort that I want, the prices that I want. And so you can definitely limit your options when you're booking
Yeah.
through Capital One's portal. And if you're doing that too often, depending on just how much you travel, then you're going to lose all the value. You may even cost yourself money if you force yourself to use their portal because of higher prices or
Right.
because they have fewer options, and the options available are not the ones that are most cost affordable. Or like you said, because you could have used your miles through another service or gained through another service at a better bang for the buck at another portal or another site. And so again, I think the common trend here is that you really do have to travel enough to where this portal is not a bad thing, but a good thing, that you're going to no doubt hit it enough times during the course of a year, even if it's not always best and you don't use it, you're still going to hit it enough times to where it it's just as good as anything else you would choose, and you can book your
Right.
travel that way and take advantage of Capital One's. And frankly, I've never used it, so I don't know the answer
Yeah.
to that. Is it, are you costing yourself another 100, 200, $300 every time you book because you're going through their portal and there's just no way around it? If that's the
Mhm.
case with their portal, then you're going to lose out in the long run. You'd be
Right.
better off with a cashback card or some other travel card that's giving you some miles without that.
Right.
And frankly, nowadays with miles and all, if you're not getting a card like this where you get the bonuses and everything every year, then most of your standard airline cards or cards that give you miles just do not beat the overall value of a cashback
Yeah.
card that pays you 1.5 or 2%. So you're
Yeah.
better off doing just cash, straight up cash back, gives you maximum flexibility, and you can take advantage of that.
Right. Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think the only circumstance is if you are going for one of those specific, airline cards or hotel cards or something. It's because you have to really be a diehard fan and are willing to pay the extra regardless for those, hotels, whether you're booking with points or not. And when it comes down to it, I don't really believe in that philosophy. I'm not stuck to one airline or one hotel brand. That's why I am actually going to be probably downgrading my Delta card that I've got now just because I'm not going to get the use out of it to pay the recently increased fee that they've added onto it. So luckily there's a way out to where I don't take a credit hit by, getting rid of the card, but I can just go to a 0 annual fee card. But for anybody watching this, I don't advise trying to go that path. Really do your research on the card that you're looking into. I tried to do my best with this card. And as we've talked about, there's a lot of perks that can really draw your eye away, from the actual cost of the card. Like, oh yeah, I basically get $400 back. Great. But like we mentioned, what's the point then? Because you're basically just breaking even. So you really want to make sure that you're, like you said, traveling enough to really make these cards worth it, or you're going to be able to take the priority pass lounges in many airports. So I get access to all of those lounges with the Capital One card. That's great. How often am I actually going to be using lounges, to be able to say, okay, that $200-$300 cost of just buying the priority pass outright, am I actually going to be using that through this card to get the perk of being able to use, the Capital One versus having to go through that annual membership there. So, you really have to weigh out those fees. And a lot of my decision, once again, came into the fact that the travel I want to be doing and I'm planning to take advantage of will be a lot more international. So I will be able to take advantage of a lot more of those versus if I'm only really flying domestically or only really visiting domestic places. Generally, they're going to be either nonstop flights or one-stop flights where I'm only there for an hour, not going to really be able to use lounges too much, that sort of thing. This card may not be for you. So it's really kind of weighing those odds. I do want to get into too, though. I have found that I'm very conscious of my credit cards. I pay attention to them a lot. So I pay attention to where I can get the best benefits from them. So I've got a couple. However, like I mentioned when we first started this episode, I pay them off every single statement. I do not let my credit cards ride and I do not let a balance come over. That is not the case with most people. I've stayed very to the point and diligent and disciplined with my cards, and make sure that, if it's coming to where I don't have that in my account, I'm not spending that money. So I do want to kind of put that disclaimer in this video and maybe talk about that some just as a discussion, but credit cards are not for everybody. And I'd love to kind of hear maybe your thoughts on that, and maybe how that's come into play, throughout things that you've seen.
Yeah, I agree. And one issue with the Capital X Venture card, One Venture X card, may be that you may not qualify for that card. Another issue might be that if you do qualify, but you're still not disciplined in your credit card spending, then you may be getting a credit card that's got a high enough limit that it poses problems for you. Roll back to our episode about budgeting. And make sure that you're that person first. Get whatever counseling and planning you need to be that person, and then only use credit cards when you can be that person that's using them for the perks, and
Yeah.
not to fund a lifestyle that's beyond your budget. If you can adjust that first, that will be best for the long term.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, you actually mentioned something that reminded me. One thing that also went into my decision for getting that card is I did not want to get another credit card until my credit score was above 800. And so that played into mine because uh, one, you have to recognize that when you apply for a credit card, you're going to get a hit. It's a hard line of credit, and you're going to get that hit on your credit score. And although that may come up quicker than just not paying off your balance and it going down of that sort, uh, it is something to take note of. And the fact that you could go and get 10, 20 credit cards to have lines of credit, but you will be taking that hit from applying to those. So that was one thing, not completely the reason why I waited until my score was above 800. Uh, but it was kind of a kudos. Okay, I feel a lot better now that, if I do apply for one, I'll be able to come back to this. And even when I take the hit, I'll still have a pretty great credit score. So that was just something I wanted to add in as something too that you can be thinking of is, if you're considering getting another card, take note of where your credit score's at, and take note of, whether it is time or is not time for you to even be considering one. Just wanted to throw that in there as another thought. That was also one of my thoughts, like going into actually getting another card.
I like that. It's good to keep in mind credit, especially if you never want to apply for a credit card right before you're getting ready to buy a house,
Yep.
or apply for student loans, or something that's very important to your life and where you are. Just sometimes you've got to, wait. In the long
Right.
run, it's, if you are somebody that sticks to a budget, you pay your credit cards off every month. Uh, it's a good idea to have a credit card for
Yeah.
emergencies. Some might disagree with that. And if you're
Yeah.
someone who disagrees with that, or knows that you should disagree with that because of how you spend, then don't take that advice. But
Yeah.
a
Absolutely.
lot of folks believe it's beneficial. And if it is for you, and then something to keep in mind is that when banks get stressed, like they were in 2022, 2008, they can just decide to cut off a lot of fruit. So it's a good
Mhm.
idea to have a credit card from more than one bank. Don't have
Yeah.
all your cards in one basket, so to say, because if Chase decides to cut fruit, it's surprising sometimes one particular company, a Capital One, a Chase, a Citibank, you may not realize that they've issued all of your cards, even though your cards have different names on them. So
Right.
check that, and if you do, uh, want to do something that adds to your level of comfort and safety, it's not a bad idea to have cards from more than one vendor. In fact, I like the
Yeah.
idea of having one that's from like a local bank, local credit
Yeah.
union, and then one, and that's kind of a backup card. Use it once, twice a year just to keep it
Mhm.
active and help your credit score that way by not having a dormant card. And then maybe use your Venture X card as your primary to collect those
Right.
points. That way, if for some reason Capital One decides they're going to cut off all the low hanging fruit, then you still have a credit card for to keep in your wallet for emergencies, flat tires, things like that, medical
Right.
expenses that come up and you don't have the emergency fund yet to deal with or something. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's some good information you've thrown out there to us, Nate. I might also, since we mainly talked about travel cards, I'm going to
Yeah.
plug a couple of websites that I've enjoyed that provide some good analysis and in-depth reviews, because the math on these cards can be nearly impossible to figure out. And so
Yeah.
referring to some other resources could be very helpful. I'm sure when you were doing your research, you um, randomly fell upon some of these things, but
Sure. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like the pointsguy.com.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's a
Um,
great one.
that's a good website. And then I listen to Clark Howard. I enjoy Clark, and he's got some tools on at clarkhoward.com as well, where he analyzes and recommends the best travel cards. And so for those of you who are looking for a travel card, you're going to find the 2, 3, or 4 best by visiting those sites. And then you
Yeah.
can determine based on how much you travel and what's important to you in your travel, which one to get. It may be worth it to you to get that Amex card that they charge
Yeah.
what, $700 a year for.
$700. Yeah, it's wild.
But if you travel enough and their ability to transfer and your ability to get certain perks with them, again, that's where you have to do that math, that side by side comparison, and really figure it all out. Because
Right.
I think Nate landed on that Capital One Venture X card because it is a good all arounder that's right for most people. But from what I understand, the Chase Sapphire and
It's a
the
good one.
Amex card that's meant for travel are also the best card for some people over that
Right.
Venture X. So do your homework and
Mhm.
make a good decision for yourself. Definitely don't sign up until you do, because their costs can be
Yeah.
high.
Yep, absolutely. Completely agree with that. And to take into the consideration, we haven't talked too much about it today, but it's great if it works this year. This is probably going to be one of the harder things to me to figure out. But, if you're about to click apply for one of those, make sure that it's going to work for you 5-10 years down the line as well. Because once again, if you do decide 5 years down the line to cancel it, you'll be taking a hit on your credit score. And so make sure that it's something that you will be able to use continually down the line. Maybe you don't have kids yet. Is this something you're going to be able to continue to pick up and use for a once a year or 2 years? Or if you're going to be able to travel enough when you get to that point in your life, or if that's on your to-do list to keep up. If not, then take a second look and see if there's a better option, or if you just don't need to get one at this time.
Yeah, these
Or
are
wait
not the
and
right
see.
cards for short term.
No, I completely
If
agree
you're
with
not
that.
making a long-term plan and you don't see your financial situation being such that that long-term plan includes a lot of travel, then
Mhm.
this is not yet the right card. It may be 10 years from now, 20 years from
Right.
now. I'm in a position that doesn't feel like I'm going to be able to travel enough quite yet. But
Yeah.
I'm thinking in a few years I might be in a position for something like this card. Nate,
Yeah.
you're starting out great. You're already planning to live life to the fullest. I'm impressed.
Doing my best.
Just wait till you've had 6 kids. Everything
Yeah.
will change.
Well, hopefully not
And
that many. Hopefully they don't follow in the footsteps
you'll be in
there.
the same
But
boat I'm in, where you're not traveling 3 or 4 times a year, and you're not
Yep.
able to go overseas every year, and you will not need a Venture Ace card. But
Yep.
no,
I do
I
want to
know
add
you're going
in
to
too
manage
that
life the way you want
Yeah.
to. So that's good.
Yeah, I mean, it's all personal basis. What works for you. I will want to add in too, it's just another thing that was going through my head too. It's like you get excited for these trips and you want to go on them too. If you are working, not at your own company or not a very flexible company, make sure you've got the PTO to actually take those trips as well. Most people do, but just wanted to kind of add that in there. I know mine's a bit smaller compared to a lot of places, so I really can only afford maybe some weekend trips and one big trip a year. So take that into consideration as well. But once again, it goes into, like we've been talking about, make sure whatever decision you're going to make, it works for you and it makes sense down the line. And whether it'll really come down to it for making the right decision, just do your research. And I think when it comes to any credit cards, there's a lot of great ones out there. At the end of the day, do your research, make sure it's the best fit for you, as well as, make sure you're in the best place, the best time, or if it's just, you just shouldn't mess with it right now at all. So,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And before you sign up, check with your parent-teacher organization at your local school. No, I'm sure you meant personal time off.
Yeah. Sorry, I was like, wait, what?
See,
Yeah,
that's the
personal
generational.
time off.
That's the generational part of the podcast.
Yeah.
Back in my time, PTO meant parent-teacher organization, and
Yeah.
now it means paid time off.
No, it's funny.
Paid
Ruby
time
just
off or
started
personal
working.
time off?
Yeah, a paid time off. Yeah.
Okay.
Ruby just started working at a school, and so they have the PTOs there as well. When she first mentioned that, I was confused.
Yeah, I'm in the school too. We call them personal days. So we haven't even used that term there. So you got me on that one. Pretty easy to figure
So
out.
good.
All right. Hey,
Yeah,
I've enjoyed this
absolutely.
episode, Nate.
Me as well. All right. Well, I look forward to talking to you again next week. And this concludes episode 4 of Generational Sense.